balanced the sources of hadith with the bigger picture of Islam. So anyway, went on. Let me cover a little bit relationship between the approach of the maqasid and two other important approaches that we have and that you will hear about inshallah in detail when you take the course on Islamic thought. You have a course called Introduction to Islamic Thought, Contemporary Islamic Thought. And you will hear a lot about both schools and many of their of their scholars. The Islamization of Knowledge school is a school that was promoted by the International International Institute of Islamic Thought in America. And that is an organization, as you can see in your notes, that's founded by a number of brothers from a number of countries, but mostly Iraq and so forth, and led by Professor Ismail Farouqi, a Palestinian scholar who ended up in America. And because of the work he did in the community, especially with the African American community, he was assassinated. That's my analysis of what happened. Because of his attempts, and successfully though, bringing the African American community into Sunni Islam, into, away from some of the bid'ahs they had. And his impact on that with a number of other scholars, some still alive, like our Ustad Dr. Jamal Badawi, and others like, at that time, Dr. Ahmed Saqr, Ahmed Qadi, and so forth, and other scholars from the Arab world who would occasionally come. Basically, the nation of Islam has converted from some wrong ideas, God is black and this kind of thing, and the white man is a devil, and Islam is only for the blacks kind of ideas, into that Islam is everybody's and so forth, and into what the nation of Islam itself calls Sunni Islam. And that's the second generation, Warathiddin Muhammad, and especially Malcolm X, rahimahullah, who was also assassinated for a similar reason. Well, he was assassinated for other levels of activism and awareness of the reality of America. But basically, they promoted an Islamization of knowledge that is based on what is famously called the two readings. The reading of the Quran and Sunnah, or the reading of the Quran and the Sunnah with it, and the reading of the universe. There are hundreds of people of scholars who followed the Islamization of Knowledge school, and they had the two readings in various versions of it. The Aqli and Naqli, if you go to Southeast Asia, everybody talks about Aqli and Naqli over there. Because of the Islamization of Knowledge impact, because also they built a university there, the International Islamic University of Malaysia, IIUM, of which I'm on one of its boards. So I know the project, and I know that the project spilled from IIUM into other universities and so forth, who took the Aqli and Naqli. The Malays really liked the idea of al-Aqli wa al-Naqli. It also took the form of an Islamic specialization and a secular specialization, as they had in IIUM, I think until today, that you get a degree by studying an aspect of the Sharia and an aspect of secular knowledge, right? So you have these, and usually the secular knowledge is social sciences at that time. So you study sociology or archaeology or anthropology or arts, and you study Islamic knowledge in terms of fiqh and tafsir and hadith and so forth. It also appeared in other expressions, like the scholars of the text and the context, that had an experiment for it in Qatar, and other expressions that are really part of the Islamization of Knowledge bigger group. Many people critiqued the Islamization of Knowledge as in principle. Of course, many of the secular people in the Arab world did not like that. and that knowledge cannot be Islamized. Knowledge, there is no Islamic knowledge and non-Islamic knowledge. Some of the philosophers of the Arab world, like Zaki Najib Mahmoud and others, they said no, the knowledge cannot be Islamized. And I think that is unacceptable, because no, knowledge has an ideology behind it. In this case, it's Islam. But they reject that. And some people rejected the Islamization of knowledge approach for a number of reasons. For example, Sheikh Naqib al-Attas in Malaysia, about the definition of knowledge from the Western perspective for the social sciences, which is the same critique I do have, I write about. I'll tell you about that now when we talk about the Maqasid approach. And others like Fadlur Rahman of America, and a number of others, and Dr. Aman al-Fadl, rahimahullah, and then eventually Sheikh Tajab al-Alwani, who became the leader of that International Institute of Islamic Thought, my ustad in a number of ways. They called for eventually integration of knowledge rather than Islamization of knowledge. So let's integrate the two knowledges, aqli and naqli. And it's a long story. I gave lectures on aqli and naqli back in Malaysia, and if you're interested in finding my YouTube channel. But I would summarize in a few minutes that the Maqasid approach that we are talking about, that is now, in my view, another stream of Islamic thought, has differences from the Islamization of knowledge approach in a number of ways. Number one, al-aqli does not differentiate between the revelation and the non-revelation, al-naqli, and that is a problem. When we say we're going to read the book, and then this eventually developed into al-naqli, the transmitted knowledge versus the rational knowledge. The transmitted knowledge in that school, usually people don't differentiate between two types of naqli, of transmitted. The transmitted from above to below, the revelation, and the transmitted from below to below, from the generations. So we mix the knowledge that we have from the madhahib al-fiqh with the knowledge that we have from Allah and His Messenger, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is one critique here, that we need to say that there is naqli, but there is naqli muha bihi, wahi. Naqli as in wahi, and naqli as in fiqh or fiqh. And that is the difference between sharia and fiqh. Sharia is from Allah, but fiqh is developed, is human thought. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but it could be wrong. And it doesn't mean it's changeable, but it could be changeable. That's fiqh by definition. Sharia by definition is not wrong, can never be wrong, and Sharia by definition can never change. So that's one general remark. The other remark is the difference between different kinds of aqli. What do you mean by aqli here? If you mean by aqli social sciences only versus natural sciences, then your definition of aqli is not accurate. In the Islamization of knowledge, in a number of its approaches, or I would say most of its approaches, they focus on the social sciences and not the natural sciences. They say that natural sciences, Islam is neutral about them. Islam is neutral about medicine and biology and marine sciences and environmental sciences and so forth. But when it comes to sociology and criminology and law and this and art, then no, Islam has something to do with this. And that differentiation from the Maqasid perspective, people who work on Maqasid Sharia have a different view on that, because the natural sciences are not void of value. When you manufacture a car or a building, when you do an operation on a patient as a surgeon, this is not value free. This is full of method and priorities and ethics. And not just ethics, because some people in the Islamization project went by saying that, okay, Islam is about ethics. It's not just ethics, it's the philosophy of it. It's the definition of physics or medicine. It's the definition of what you call archaeology. How do you define that? And when did we start? And why are we here? These are questions of archaeology. And when you say economics, like the other day I had a conversation with one of my students overseas, and he's saying economics is a science, has nothing to do with this. I said, no, here is the economy man shaking his head, because economics is full of values. Economics could kill people and could give them life. Economics is not value-free. You cannot say Islam has nothing to do with economics. And the Islamic financing is not everything we need from the Islamic economics. Islamic finances is everything we need from the finances. Yeah, so in order I deal with a contract that is not ribawi, I would love to do that, better than dealing with a ribawi contract. But the bigger system is still ribawi. The bigger system, the definition of the human in the core of economics is non-Islamic. The human as, you know, as the, you know, in the new economic theories, as all aware and greedy and stuff. No, that Islam doesn't define that. Islam says that a human is a mixture of greed and generosity. It's a mixture of ignorance and knowledge. And these things have an impact on the economic theory. Therefore, when you say, I'm just going to finish this and then we discuss. When we say al-adli, we should not differentiate between the natural sciences. Even if we study biology or marine life, there is a lot of Islam in this. Do you believe that these animals have consciousness, or you don't? I did, as I mentioned, I studied a bit of neuroscience in my academic journey, and they study consciousness under that, under neuroscience. They don't believe in any consciousness, mostly in the neuroscience people, except for the humans. And then they define it in the brain. They don't believe that animals or plants are conscious. But in the Quran, we know that animals and plants are conscious. They are umamun amthalukum. They are nations like you. So they have families, they have cultures, they have norms. Yes, we are allowed to eat some of them, according to particular criteria, but they are not, they are not made to be